The first sign came as a whisper of static. Commander Maria Rodriguez studied the data stream with growing unease, her fingers tracing the holographic display of the Sigma Outpost communication logs. Normally bustling with daily reports, mining updates, and routine transmissions, the colony had gone completely silent 3 standard days ago. "Show me the last transmission again," she commanded, her voice cutting through the tense bridge of the reconnaissance vessel Nighthawk. Lieutenant Kai Chen manipulated the holographic controls, and the final message flickered to life. It was nothing more than a garbled burst of sound, a fraction of a second of what might have been a human voice, followed by an electronic screech that made the bridge crew wince. No words, no context, just nothing. The Sigma Outpost was no ordinary settlement. Established 5 years earlier, it was a critical mining colony extracting rare quantum-reactive minerals from a resource-rich asteroid belt. Over 12,000 humans called it home. Engineers, miners, their families, support staff. A self-contained ecosystem floating in the vast darkness of space, now utterly silent. Initial scans revealed something impossible. The outpost's structural integrity was intact. Life support systems functioned at 98% efficiency. Power generators ran at optimal levels. But not a single life sign registered. "It's like they simply vanished," whispered Dr. Elena Volkov, the mission's xenobiological expert. Her pale green eyes reflected the flickering holographic data, searching for some pattern, some explanation. Rodriguez knew vanishing acts didn't happen in space. Not like this. Every disappearance left traces, signs of struggle, energy weapon impacts, hull breaches, radiation signatures. But Sigma Outpost was pristine. Too pristine. The Nighthawk approached the massive station, its advanced sensors probing every centimeter. Automated docking protocols engaged and a boarding team prepared. Rodriguez would lead the mission herself. Something told her this was more than a routine investigation. As the airlock cycled, the first team members entered the station. Their suit cameras transmitted back to the ship, revealing corridors bathed in standard lighting, environmental systems humming normally. Chairs sat exactly where they'd been left. Half-finished coffee mugs remained on desks. A child's drawing was pinned to a wall, bright colors seemingly untouched by whatever had occurred. But no people. "Life signs," Rodriguez asked through her comm system. "Negative," responded Lieutenant Chen. "It's like they've been erased." The investigation revealed increasingly disturbing details. Personal quarters were immaculate. No signs of struggle. No emergency protocols triggered. Meals half prepared in kitchens. Computers left running. Virtual displays showing ongoing work tasks. An entire community, mid-moment, suddenly gone. Dr. Volkov's initial analysis suggested something beyond conventional understanding. Microscopic scans of surfaces showed no DNA residue, no cellular material. It was as if the entire population had been lifted away, leaving behind a perfect, sterile replica of their living space. Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's temperature. Whatever had happened here was a message, a warning. And humanity was only now beginning to understand the scale of the threat. "Prepare full data transmission to Earth Command," she ordered. "And get me a direct line to Central Intelligence. Something is hunting us, and we need to understand what." As the Nighthawk began its return journey, carrying with it the first evidence of an encounter that would change human history forever, the vast emptiness of space seemed to watch, waiting. The United Nations Emergency Council chamber fell silent as the holographic recreation of the Sigma Outpost played out. 12,000 people gone, vanished without a trace, without a struggle. Dr. Akira Tanaka stood at the center of the room, his slight frame belying the magnitude of his proposed solution. Behind him, a cascading display of quantum computing models flickered with impossible complexity. Where others saw an incomprehensible threat, Tanaka saw an engineering challenge. "We are not dealing with a conventional enemy," he began, his voice calm and precise. "This is a predatory intelligence that operates beyond our current understanding of warfare, communication, or even physical interaction. Global representatives from every continent leaned forward. The days of political division were over. For the first time in human history, the entire species faced a truly existential threat. General Marcus Hernandez, head of the Unified Defense Command, interrupted. What we need are weapons. Defenses, not theoretical models. Tanaka's holographic display shifted. Intricate neural networks began to pulse and interlink, showing a revolutionary concept. Weapons are outdated thinking. We need living systems, adaptive intelligence that can think faster than any biological or mechanical opponent. The display revealed his breakthrough. A neural-linked starship network where each vessel wasn't just a machine, but a thinking, evolving organism. Individual ships could communicate, predict, and respond faster than any centralized command structure. It was warfare transformed from mechanical precision to organic intelligence. Across the planet, humanity shifted into overdrive. Universities became 24-hour research complexes. Every field of study, from quantum mechanics to xenolinguistics, from computational biology to advanced materials science, was redirected toward a single goal: survival. In Tokyo, Dr. Yumi Nakamura developed adaptive nanomaterial hull coatings that could instantly reconfigure molecular structures to resist unknown weapon signatures. In Sao Paulo, a team of engineers created quantum-entangled communication systems that could transmit information instantaneously across impossible distances. The global draft was unlike anything in human history. But this wasn't conscription in the traditional sense. Every citizen became part of the solution. Programmers wrote adaptive AI algorithms. Psychologists studied alien communication patterns. Artists and linguists worked to understand potential nonlinear communication methods. We are not preparing for war, declared UN Secretary-General Elena Rodriguez in a global broadcast. We are evolving. Military academies were transformed. Traditional hierarchical command structures gave way to fluid, adaptive teams. Soldiers trained not just in combat, but in rapid problem-solving, psychological flexibility, and interdisciplinary thinking. Tanaka's neural-linked starship concept became the cornerstone of this new approach. Each vessel would be more than a weapon. It would be a living, thinking entity capable of learning, adapting, and responding to threats in microseconds. Our greatest weapon, Tanaka told his team, is not technology. It's our ability to fundamentally reimagine what's possible. As production facilities across the globe began manufacturing the first of these new starships, humanity prepared for a conflict that would define not just their survival, but their entire understanding of existence in the universe. The hunt was on. And this time, humanity would not be the prey. The Wolf 359 system burned. Plasma eruptions painted the darkness with violent strokes of orange and electric blue. The U.S. Defiance cut through the chaos like a quantum blade. Captain Maria Rodriguez's voice, a steel thread connecting her ship's neural network. Pattern Sigma 9, she commanded, her voice steady despite the maelstrom surrounding them. The Vornak never expected this. Their invasion fleet, a massive armada of crystalline warships that had crushed a dozen civilizations, suddenly found themselves in a nightmare of impossible movement and strategy. 12 human ships moved like a living organism. Where traditional military doctrine demanded rigid formations, these vessels danced. They weren't just ships. They were extensions of a collective intelligence that thought faster than organic minds could comprehend. Sub-Commander Krell of the Vornak flagship watched in mounting horror. The human vessels defied every tactical model in their millennia-old military database. They didn't just dodge, they anticipated. Each ship seemed to know the enemy's intention before the Vornak commanders could even form the thought. The neural link developed by Dr. Tanaka transformed warfare into something beyond traditional combat. Each human ship was both an individual unit and part of a greater consciousness. They shared information, predicted trajectories, and adapted instantaneously. A Vornak battlecruiser attempted to bring its primary weapon to bear. Before the energy could even charge, 3 human destroyers had already calculated its precise firing arc. They didn't just avoid the shot. They used the weapon's energy signature to launch a coordinated counterattack that tore through the alien vessel's defensive grid. Swarm protocol activated, Rodriguez murmured, her neural interface allowing her to simultaneously command her ship and be part of its collective intelligence. The battle borrowed from nature's most efficient systems. Like a school of fish or a swarm of locusts, the human ships moved with an organic unity that was simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. They were studying the Vornak in real time, learning, adapting, evolving with each microsecond of conflict. Lieutenant Kai, Chen's voice cut through the neural network. Detecting quantum resonance in enemy shield harmonics, preparing adaptive countermeasure. Before Chen finished speaking, the ships had already adjusted. The Vornak discovered their most advanced defensive technologies were being decoded and neutralized faster than they could implement them. This wasn't just a battle. It was a demonstration of humanity's fundamental strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and transform faster than any known species in the galaxy. When the engagement ended, 60% of the Vornak invasion force had been destroyed. Not through brute force, but through an incomprehensible tactical fluidity that the alien commanders couldn't begin to understand. Sub-Commander Krell's final transmission was a mixture of confusion and growing dread. What are these humans? On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest moment of a smile. They had just changed the nature of warfare forever. The message was clear. Humanity was no one's prey. The black site laboratory beneath the Atacama Desert wasn't on any official map. Here, humanity's most brilliant minds worked at the bleeding edge of scientific possibility. Dr. Elena Volkov stood before a holographic display, her fingers dancing across quantum matrices that would have been incomprehensible to most human minds. Behind her, a team of researchers from 23 different disciplines worked in perfect synchronization. Physicists alongside xenolinguists, computer scientists collaborating with psychologists, engineers brainstorming with mathematicians. The Vornak don't just use technology, she explained to the assembled research team. They are prisoners of their own technological paradigm. We need to weaponize flexibility itself. Her latest project was nothing short of revolutionary. Adaptive quantum shielding that could predict and counter alien weapon frequencies before they were even fired. But that was just the beginning. In a sealed chamber adjacent to her primary lab, Dr. Akira Tanaka's team worked on something far more dangerous. They were developing mimetic warfare algorithms, digital weapons that could literally reprogram the psychological conditioning of enemy combatants. It's not about destruction, Tanaka explained to his lead researcher, Dr. Maya Ortiz. It's about transformation. The algorithm they were developing was a linguistic and psychological weapon, unlike anything in human history. By analyzing captured Vornak communication protocols, they were creating a system that could introduce fundamental contradictions into the alien species' collective thought processes. Nearby, another team worked on quantum entanglement communication systems that could transmit information faster than light, rendering traditional communication interception impossible. Each breakthrough seemed to come faster than the last, humanity's collective intelligence functioning like a single, massively parallel processor. The most radical development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yumiko Nakamura, a specialist in biomimetic engineering, had discovered a way to create adaptive nanomaterial hull coatings. These materials could reconfigure their molecular structure instantaneously, responding to different types of energy attacks in microseconds. We're not just building weapons, Nakamura told her team. We're creating living technologies that can think and adapt. The implications were staggering. Each human ship was becoming more than a weapon. It was an evolving organism, capable of learning and transforming faster than any static technological system could predict. Deep in the facility's most secure lab, a breakthrough that would change everything was taking shape. Dr. Victor Rodriguez, no relation to the naval captain, but equally driven, had developed a quantum computing system that could simulate entire civilizational conflict scenarios in real time. The Vornak believe in deterministic warfare, he explained to a small group of military strategists. We're creating a system that turns war into a continuous, adaptive problem-solving exercise. The system could predict potential conflict scenarios with such accuracy that it seemed almost like precognition. But it wasn't magic. It was the result of humanity's most powerful weapon: the ability to learn, adapt, and reimagine the impossible. As night fell over the Atacama Desert, the laboratory hummed with potential. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was evolving into something the galaxy had never seen before. The hunt was on. And this time, humanity was doing the hunting. The communication came encrypted through a quantum-entangled transmission, its origin untraceable. Ambassador Sarah Chen studied the holographic display in the United Nations Senate Diplomacy Center, her fingers tracing the delicate web of potential alliances forming across the galaxy. This was more than traditional diplomacy. This was warfare conducted through information, hope, and strategic connection. The Vornak's empire wasn't a monolith. It was a carefully constructed illusion of unity, maintained through centuries of systematic oppression and cultural manipulation. Humanity's intelligence services had discovered something profound. Every conquered species harbored a spark of resistance, waiting for the right moment to ignite. On the holographic map, each recovered communication from a subjugated civilization told a story. The Kreltheri, a silicon-based species from the Andromeda's outer rim, had been under Vornak control for over 3 centuries. Their language was a complex tapestry of electromagnetic pulses and quantum-encoded memories. Most would have considered them broken. Sarah Chen saw potential. "We're not offering military support," she explained to her team of xenolinguists and strategic analysts. "We're offering a blueprint for liberation." The strategy was multi-layered. Human agents, some biological, some advanced AI constructs, began infiltrating communication networks across Vornak-controlled territories. They didn't bring weapons. They brought something far more dangerous: information, hope, and the concept of collective resistance. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a specialist in synapsecology, had developed communication protocols that could bypass traditional linguistic barriers. "Every species has a breaking point," he often said. "And that breaking point is always hope." Their first major breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Kreltheri, initially hesitant, began sharing detailed information about Vornak communication protocols. Each piece of intelligence was a weapon more precise than any plasma cannon. In hidden communication nodes, resistance leaders from multiple subjugated species began to connect. They shared stories of survival, of small rebellions, of moments of defiance that had been suppressed for generations. Humanity didn't leave these conversations. They created the space for them to happen. Deep cover operatives worked in ways that defied traditional espionage. Some were biological agents, others were advanced AI constructs capable of navigating complex social and technological networks. They didn't just gather intelligence, they planted seeds of possibility. A Vornak communication intercepted by human intelligence revealed the growing panic. The humans do not conquer, one high-level communication read. They transform. The galactic resistance was becoming a living organism. Each subjugated species contributed something unique: technological insights, cultural strategies, survival techniques. The Kreltheri's quantum communication methods merged with human adaptive technologies. The methane-breathing Zornak contributed advanced stealth techniques. Ambassador Chen watched the holographic display pulse with potential. This wasn't just a war. This was a revolution of consciousness. "We're not building an alliance," she whispered to herself. "We're midwifing a new way of existing in the universe." As stars continued their silent dance across the galaxy, a network of resistance continued to grow, one quantum-encrypted transmission at a time. Absolute silence preceded the storm. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the holographic tactical display of the Sagittarius arm, her neural interface humming with the collective consciousness of the human fleet. Thousands of ships, human, and now joined by liberated species, hung in a moment of perfect, terrifying anticipation. The Vornak had committed everything. Their entire remaining fleet, centuries of galactic domination condensed into one final desperate assault. Collective intelligence at 98% synchronization. Lieutenant Kai Chen reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what was about to unfold. The first wave of Vornak ships emerged from quantum slip space like a crystalline nightmare. Massive vessels that had crushed civilizations for millennia, their hulls reflecting starlight with an almost organic sheen. They moved with a precision that had broken countless species, a ballet of technological perfection that had become their greatest weakness. Humanity's response was anything but precise. It was alive. The human fleet moved like a living organism. No centralized command, no rigid formations. Each ship was both an individual and part of a collective intelligence that processed information faster than biological minds could comprehend. They didn't just react. They anticipated, learned, transformed. Adaptive Protocol Omega, Rodriguez commanded. The fleet liquefied. Where traditional military doctrine demanded structure, these ships became something else entirely. They flowed like quantum mercury, individual vessels merging and separating with impossible speed. Krell-Ferry stealth technologies merged with human adaptive shielding. Zornak quantum communication protocols intertwined with AI-driven tactical algorithms. Sub-Commander Krell of the Vornak flagship watched in mounting terror. Their most advanced predictive algorithms collapsed under the weight of human unpredictability. These weren't ships. They were something else entirely. A collective intelligence that defied every tactical model in their millennia-old database. A Vornak battlecruiser attempted to bring its primary weapon to bear. Before the energy could even charge, 3 human destroyers had already calculated its precise firing arc. They didn't just avoid the shot. They used the weapon's energy signature to launch a coordinated counterattack that tore through the alien vessel's defensive grid. The battle became a 3-dimensional dance of impossible complexity. Ships that should have been destroyed found ways to survive. Tactics that should have been ineffective became devastating. The human fleet wasn't just fighting. It was learning, evolving with each microsecond of conflict. "We are not just fighting," Rodriguez murmured through the neural network. "We are becoming something new." Liberation ships from previously conquered species joined the human fleet. The Krell-Ferry's electromagnetic pulse weapons, the Zornak's quantum disruption technologies. Each species contributed to a collective defense that was greater than the sum of its parts. When the final quantum calculations were made, the results were staggering. The Vornak had lost 87% of their fleet, not through brute force, but through a tactical flexibility that rewrote the very concept of warfare. Sub-Commander Krell's final transmission was a mixture of confusion and existential dread. What are these humans? On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Rodriguez allowed herself the briefest moment of a smile. The message was clear. Humanity was no one's prey. The interrogation room was unlike any in galactic history. Captured Vornak High Commander Zarek sat suspended in a quantum-adaptive containment field, his crystalline body refracting light in impossible patterns. Dr. Victor Rodriguez, chief synapsychologist of the United Nations Interstellar Research Division, studied the alien with an intensity that went beyond scientific curiosity. This was more than an interrogation. It was a first contact of a different kind. "Tell me about your civilization's fundamental belief," Rodriguez prompted, his neural interface translating complex electromagnetic pulses into comprehensible language. Zarek's response was a cascade of memories, cultural imprints, and genetic memories that would have overwhelmed any other species. But humanity had prepared. The quantum adaptive translation matrix developed by Dr. Tanaka's team parsed the aliens' communication with unprecedented depth. What emerged was a civilization built on absolute hierarchy. The Vornak had conquered not just through military might, but through a deeply ingrained cultural belief in predetermined existence. Each member of their species was born into a precise role, with movement between societal levels considered not just impossible, but fundamentally wrong. "We do not understand," Zarik's communication pulsed. "Your species defies every fundamental law of collective survival." Rodriguez leaned forward. "That is our strength." The human had prepared decades for this moment. The interrogation wasn't about extracting military secrets. It was about understanding the fundamental difference between human potential and the Vornak's rigid existential framework. Across multiple research facilities, teams of synapsologists, linguists, and quantum analysts worked to decode the deeper implications of this capture. Each revelation was a weapon more powerful than any plasma cannon. The Vornak's hierarchical system had been their greatest strength and their ultimate weakness. They had conquered dozens of species by applying a universal template of control. Resistance was mathematically predicted and systematically crushed. Until humanity. "Your civilization cannot comprehend adaptation," Rodriguez explained, displaying holographic representations of human social, technological, and cultural evolution. "We do not accept predetermined limitations." Zarik's response was a quantum cascade of emotional intellectual complexity. Confusion. Fear. A slowly dawning comprehension that threatened to shatter everything his civilization understood about existence. The captured commander represented more than a military intelligence asset. He was a living bridge between two fundamentally different ways of understanding reality. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technological. It was the ability to look at an impossible challenge and see not a barrier, but an opportunity for transformation. Research teams discovered something profound in Zarik's communication patterns. The very act of being studied was changing him. The quantum adaptive translation matrix wasn't just interpreting his language, it was fundamentally altering his perception of reality. "We are teaching them how to learn," Dr. Rodriguez whispered to his team. The implications were staggering. This wasn't just a war. This was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligent life could be. As stars continued their silent dance, a civilization that had believed in absolute control discovered something far more terrifying: the possibility of true change. The conference chamber on the neutral station Horizon Prime was unlike any diplomatic meeting in galactic history. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the massive circular hall. Humans were not at the center. They were simply part of a vast, interconnected mosaic of intelligent life. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood near the back, watching as the new Galactic Charter took shape. The Vornak delegation, now transformed beyond recognition, sat alongside species they had conquered for millennia. Their crystalline forms no longer represented rigid hierarchy, but something far more fluid. The captured Commander Zarik, now a key diplomatic envoy, represented more than a defeated civilization. He was living proof of fundamental transformation. "We are not creating an alliance," Ambassador Sarah Chen proclaimed to the assembled representatives. "We are establishing a framework for collective evolution." The charter they were drafting was revolutionary. It wasn't about conquest or control, but about creating a galactic ecosystem of mutual growth. Each species would contribute its unique perspective, its distinctive approach to problem solving. Humanity's role was not as a leader, but as a catalyst. Dr. Victor Rodriguez, the xenopsychologist who had first unlocked the deeper communication with the Vornak, explained the philosophical underpinnings. "Adaptation is not just a survival mechanism," he told the assembly. "It is the fundamental language of intelligent existence." The technological innovations developed during the conflict were now being transformed into tools of collective advancement. Quantum communication networks that had once been weapons now connected distant civilizations. Adaptive AI systems developed for warfare were being repurposed for scientific exploration and cultural exchange. The Krull Ferry shared their quantum communication technologies. The Zornak contributed advanced stealth and preservation techniques. Humanity offered its core strength, the ability to reimagine the impossible. Admiral Rodriguez reflected on the journey. What had begun as a fight for survival had become something far more profound. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had shown a new way of existing within it. We are not special, she thought to herself. We are simply willing to be undefined. The station's massive view screen showed a real-time map of the galaxy. Where once there were rigid borders and conquest lines, now there were intricate, flowing networks of communication and shared potential. It looked alive, a living, breathing ecosystem of intelligence. Zarek approached Rodriguez, his crystalline form now capable of expressing emotions that would have been impossible months earlier. The translation matrix revealed a complex communication, part gratitude, part understanding, part something entirely new. We were wrong. The former High Commander communicated. Existence is not about control. It is about potential. As the Galactic Charter was signed, something fundamental had changed. This was not a moment of victory. It was a moment of collective becoming. The stars outside the station seemed to pulse with a different kind of light, not the cold, distant illumination of conquest, but the warm, interconnected glow of shared possibility. Humanity had not changed the galaxy through force. They had changed it by showing what was possible.